within that, we have those different concerns. And then marketing claims by formula makers. Within that, you have the brain and reflex. So again, you have the reflex aspect. Building the brain's maturation takes much longer than was previously thought. So you have the learning of language, and you have language on which side? Left side, right side is spatial, visual spatial. So notice different parts of your brain will develop differently as it's going along. So now I want everybody to go like this. That's roughly the size of your brain right now. Right there. Roughly the size. That's roughly the size of the brain that's sitting in your head right now, that's functioning, that's absorbing everything. Some people are like, my brain is really tiny. My brain, oh my goodness, his brain has actual jewelry in it. I know. That's what I did. I had jewelry put in my brain. That's it. No. But it's one of those things as you're going along, everybody's like, what? So now, I want everybody to stand up. So we're going to do some stretches. All right. So I want you to have enough room. Everybody, if you can, stand. I know. Kind of stretch it out. Wiggle out your arms. Make sure you have a good base. Make sure you have a good something to lean against. So now your legs. Can everybody see me? So your legs. I want you to twist it over the other leg like this. I want you to extend your arms. Then I want you to interlock. Pull it in. Twist it. Pull it to you. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then hold it. And then let it go. Again. Let it go. One more time. Let it go. Unlock your legs. Unlock your arms. Lock your legs again the other way. And then you can go the other opposite way of your arms. Pull it in. Pull it close. In your nose. Out your mouth. In your nose. Out your mouth. One more time. Out your mouth. Let go. Shake it out. You can sit down. How many actually noticed their breathing actually changed to the point where it was able to lower your level of stress? Why? So what we did is we allowed one part of our brain to also transfer over to the other side of our brain. We're able to allow our neurons to fire over to the other side and vice versa. A total about 6 different times, because initially you're also allowing your breathing to interplay everything else. So you're allowing your stress levels to also be lowered. Because one of the things you're doing is when you're working with any individual, that's one of the things you're always trying to do is you're trying to go from bottom up versus top down. So the top down is everything of your forebrain and everything all down. Because that's initially your reasoning, your comprehension, your cognition. The way you reason, the way you put on your clothes, the way you do all these different things, the way you match all the different colors, all of that, that's your cognition. From the bottom up, that's your breathing. That's your initial heart rate. All these different things that attach to your central nervous system. That's what you're learning to allow to take over as you're working with an individual. Because before you help a person in a traumatic situation, you want to make sure you go from bottom up versus top down. Top down is like talk therapy. But if you're working with a baby or with a child and mother's over there freaking out and you're over there like, just let's talk it out. Let's talk. You think that person wants to talk it out? No. You're at that point where they're like, ah! And that's where you try to help them and say, okay, let's process this. Let's see what things we can do. How can we regulate all these different things so you're able to calm down? With a baby, they're doing all those different things. They're doing the massages, everything else to allow them to calm down. So now, this is your brain. Pretty, right? It's amazing. So if you look at it, you have the frontal lobe, which is all of here. That's your reasoning, cognition, parietal cortex, or parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital. That's how your brain is region. Boop, 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 boop. That's what's developing with the baby. So occipital lobe is visual information. So notice that. Occipital is where? Back here, but it processes everything we can see. Your visual. So your visual is the things that you see. Everything, the light, how it refracts up there, everything. And that's the one that absorbs through your occipital or your orbital lobes and everything else in your brain. And then it transferred all the way back. That's your visual information. That's where it all is held. And then you have the temporal lobe. Where's the temporal lobe located at? Roughly in this region, right here. So within that, what's that? Hearing and language. That's the language we speak. If you learn different languages, for mine it was Arabic and also Spanish, as well as Navajo and English. So within that, that's one of the things is you absorb all that as you're going along. And then you have parietal lobe. Where is that? It's primarily right in here, this region. Top of your head. Touch and spatial. That's when you're like, ha, 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 ha. You go along, everything else. That's where different regions of your brain will fire up. And then you have the frontal lobe. Higher level thinking, such as speech and reasoning. That's where you're able to formulate words. That's where you're able to say, oh my goodness, this is what happened to me last night. And then I said no, and then I went the other way, or I don't know. That's where I wanted to go to the dance tonight, and it's going on right now, and I'm not able to go. Oh, it's by DJ Fog, Smog, Smag, something like that. Somebody, I know. So now, molding the brain, the role of experience. So smiling, but there is a level of plasticity. So plasticity means your ability for your brain to be molded. It continually is pliable. Your brain is a living, well, I don't want to say it's a living organism, because then it sounds scary, because you're like, oh my goodness, my brain is an alien. It's an alien from me. No, it is pliable. So if you get an injury to the brain, it will try to move around that to try to still allow for a level of homeostasis. So within that, throughout the early life, the brain is creating more and more complex neuronal pathways. So this is brain modification. So you have integration, differentiation, and within that, when the neural cell function are no longer needed, what happens is cells death and the body prunes the excess brain cells. So again, this can happen if, say for example, there's a hemorrhaging, something else, hemorrhaging in other words, bleeding of the brain. If there is no oxygen to the brain, that can happen as well. That's one of the big things we're always looking at is the impacts of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. And then molding the brain, the role of experience. Again, all of that. You're storing information. In my 241, we're looking at the impacts of cells. And we're looking at the neuronal impacts. And within that, trauma can become also an impact to the neuronal inputs. So you have the synapses that are firing off information in your brain and all the different dendrites and everything else. So as they're passing all that information, it also impacts how it sends the information. It can impact your organs in terms of causing your heart rate to increase. It also impacts your muscle memory, all this and that. So as we go forward, so here it is, a myelin fatty insulation substance. So if you notice, here are the myelin sheaths, the axons, the dendrites, and within that, fires off information the other way. And then you have milestones of motor development. So within that, you have the babies first learn simple skills. So you have system of action. So as you're going along, you want to make sure you're inputting all these different skills into play. Because one, as they go forward, you want to make sure that they're able to balance, they're able to utilize all these different things so that they're able to utilize it in their everyday life. And this is where you have the Denver Developmental Screening tests. So how motor development occurs, maturation and context. So again, it's one of those things where they're learning as they're growing. This should be in your book. Not until babies can get around by themselves do they learn from experience. or from a caregiver's warning. So again, they're looking at you as the initial mode of input. So again, if you have steps, what happens within a home that has steps? They try to make sure it's a barricade, right? So the child doesn't go tumbling off, because again, their initial spatial recognition is not fully developed. As they're going along, they're trying to test out things. And if they notice, hey, this is a steep drop-off, and I don't even know anything about a steep drop-off, and I go forward, I'm just gonna, and I don't want to do that. So now, in some cultures, again, cultures are societally formed. So within that culture, do we ask questions? Are we supposed to ask questions? How many believe we are? How many believe we aren't? It's okay, I won't tell your instructors if you're taking the studies. How many believe you're supposed to ask questions? Because that's what I try to encourage you guys, right? I'm trying to encourage you guys to ask questions as you're going along. If you have questions, stop me. But one of the things is we find that within our culture, are we supposed to ask questions? No. We're told, no, leave it alone.
I think in our culture that we are supposed to observe instead of using our voice to like intimidate people. Instead, like we're more observant to see what's going on. Yeah, I think that's what I do.
Okay. And within that, one of the big things is when I used to work with inmates, I used to ask them that same question of, within your life, how many were told Noe and Doda? A lot of them are like, yeah, I was. And I said, were you ever explained why? And a lot of them are like, no, we were told never to ask the question why. And I said, why? And they said, I don't know. And I said, the reason why they did not want you to ask the question was because either they did not have an answer, or because it was very fearful that if they explained it to you, they were going to get what? In trouble. And it was like, why? And so when I was growing up, one of the big things I was always asking is the question of why. I was always asking questions always, because why? As you're going along, you want to ask as many questions, because it'll help you. It'll give you a clear outlook of what is happening. So now, within this, you're looking at being ready and training gives no advantage in terms of the child. One of the big things is they're going to have to explore it. That's what they're looking at. They're trying to explore as they're going along, and when they're performing certain activities, they're going to say, okay, this is what I can implement and I can imprint in my brain. If I've done it before, if I've been able to get the attention of mom and dad, if I've been in Walmart and I'm crying for something and they get it for me and it works, I'm going to stick to it. And so for a lot of parents, we've seen that where they're like, oh my gosh. So now, touch and pain. Touch seems to be more, to be the first sense to develop. Within that, smell and taste. A lot of times, this one. Neonates and infants prefer sweet tastes to sour ones. So how many have ever given your child Pepsi or Coke? What happens? Their face lights up like a Christmas tree. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. They're like, after that, that parent's like, no, give it back, that's mine. And the child's like, no, you see them crunch it, they're like, and they have that little death grip, and you're like, give it back to me. But one of the things is they prefer sweets. That's the reason why it becomes very dangerous. Why? Because of obesity, we talked about that. Then you have hearing. Auditory discrimination develops rapidly after birth. So they're able to discriminate and say, okay, this is what a warning sound likes. This is what this sounds like. The voice starts to play a role. They start to know when the fluctuation comes up and down. They know when a parent is upset. That comes into play. And then sight. So they have binocular vision. So they're using both eyes to focus. They're not just saying, oh, I can see you, and then they can see this side. That'd be really weird if they just stared at you like this, and then it's like, well, watch you the whole time, and you're like, this is getting creepy. It'd be very weird. And then imprinting. So within that, you see this. They're starting to imprint information. They're starting to imprint all of this. Again, we talked about the brain being very pliable and very moldable. And within that, as they're going along, they're starting to imprint all of this so that, one, they're able to carry it out at a later time. That's the reason why when we talk about abuse or any of those things or trauma, they can actually act that out where? At school. They see that. We see that at a young age because they're acting out things that they think is socially normal at home. So this is postpartum depression. So again, the information is there. And then questions. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions at all?
Next week we have a test.
Yes.
Will you give us like a layout?
No, I'm just kidding. Next week. So, Sunday at 12 a.m. Sunday morning, bright and early. I'm not going to be awake for that. But at 12 a.m., because the test will be implemented already. It's already created. It's amazing. I love it. Perfect. Beautiful. So it is worth how many points? 40. It is worth 40 points. The reason why I do not give out a layout, you have the book. You have your PowerPoints. You have, I don't know if these videos, eventually these videos will be up. So this video will be up. But you have the book, you have the PowerPoints, you have the different information, different readings, all of that. So at 12 a.m. Sunday morning, on Blackboard, your test will drop. It will be available. 12 a.m. You have a week till the end of next week, I believe. That is, yeah, it's week 4. So you have until the following Sunday, 11:59, to complete the tests. So within that, do take your time. I advise you, do take your time. I believe you only have how many chances? Was it 1? Hold on, let me see. Oh, no. I want this one. Let's see. Da-da-da-da. Where are you at? Okay. So the quiz, as noted, on your syllabus, it does indicate that it is due at the end of the week on Sunday each week. So that's just the quizzes. But for the test, it is due that initial week as well, because one, you have no final and you have no midterm. I don't really need it. But bear in mind, these quizzes and these tests, they still are hard. So please do take your time. There is no time limit. The moment you open it, it is available to you. Within that, you have a whole week to complete it. If you miss it, there better have been a good emergency. I don't even know if there are any good emergencies. You have to have a doctor's statement, if possible, if it is that. Because you have a whole week to complete it. And if it does pass the due date, it locks. That's it.
So you can like start your tests and then maybe save it halfway and then begin it on the other day?
You can take your time. That's one of the things, is take your time. I've had individuals, even for, I did this for 111. I opened up the quiz for them on day 1, and this was just for the syllabus. They were missing all this and that, and they said, can you redo it again? No. Because one, I allow you to have it open, everything else, open book, open notes. So take your time. If you're, say for example, I had some individuals who thought it was a bright idea. You know what? I'll take this test alongside you. don't do that. And there's a reason why. It switches all the answers. It moves everything around for you. So every time you click on one, it'll suddenly shoot everything differently from yours, from your partner, and you're gonna be like, wait a minute, that's, huh? So when one person is filling out answer 1, all of a sudden you're over here working on answer 45, or again, it is worth 40 points. Within that, it is multiple choice. So I advise you to take your time. Let's see what else. And your discussion questions are still due that week too, so don't forget about that. And then after that, from then on, you will initially have quizzes. Boom, 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 all the way till the end. So I advise you to make sure you look at your discussion questions immediately, because they also drop Sunday morning, 12 a.m. It's all set on a schedule. I love that schedule. It's an amazing schedule. And if there's any issues with, I think the issues with the articles or any of those, let me know immediately. And I've had some who said, well, I wasn't able to submit my discussion questions and everything else. What I would advise you to do is, if you still have access to internet that night, to email it to me. But if you email it, make sure you put your section number as well as the course number. If you simply say, I submitted my work, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, and I'm going to email you back and say, what is your course number and your section number? Because again, like I said, it's one of those things where it's all over the place. So that's primarily, I don't know if anybody had any questions on that side. No? Okay, I think we're done for today. Adios. May the force be with you. Alan Z, if you are a Doctor Who fan. If you're not, I'm sorry. Geronimo.